What do I do with this pen? I use this pen to write, scratch, draw. So fine, and I have to follow the identifier rules when I'm taking the name of the class. That's very important. What is the first one that I have? The first one that I have is data member. Another one that I have is member function. I have rect1, which I have already created. So for that, I need to allocate the memory, right? I need to initiate. Another one is that the last one that we have is object-oriented programming. What exactly is this object-oriented programming? Hello everyone, I welcome all of you to the first session on classes and objects. This is going to be a very interesting and important session for all of you in Java. Yes, you are in the right platform to understand the concepts of classes and objects. Let me take a pleasure to explain the concept of classes and objects in this session. So without wasting much of your time, my dear students, let me take you to the session. Yes, before I discuss the agenda of this session, I would like to request all of you, please don't forget to click on the bell button to subscribe to our channel. And my dear students, don't forget, if you like the content in this video, please click on the like button. All right. So what is that I will be discussing in this class? Yes, I will be discussing the introduction to the classes. Why do I need the classes? Not my class, the concept of class. Why do we need the classes? And also, what is the definition? How do I define the class is what I will be discussing. And then after that, I will also discussing how do I add the variables? How do I create the variables inside the class? And then adding the methods and creating the objects. This is the basic requirement or the basic knowledge that I need if I know the classes. Yes, in this session, you will be learning all the basic concepts with respect to the classes and objects. So without wasting much of yours and my time, let me get into the session. So I have some of the points in my slide that is for you, but listen to me carefully. So let me explain the concept of class. Yes, of course, all of us know, even in the title slide, I had a word called object-oriented. What exactly object-oriented is all about? So you have to imagine now. I will tell you the small story. You should start imagining the content, so you will find it very interesting. So guys, we had the programming. We had three types of programming. So one is procedural programming. Another one is structural programming. Another one is, and the last one that we have is object-oriented programming. What exactly is this object-oriented programming? All of you would have studied this. If you have studied the concept, or if you have studied the programming languages like C++, you would have come across with the concept of what exactly object-oriented programming is all about. Yes, the same feature what I had with the object-oriented concepts, I have the same features in Java also. So if I want to say the Java is an object-oriented programming language, the first thing that I should tell you is classes and objects. That is the first concept that I have to discuss with all of you. So that is one of the features that I have in object-oriented programming language. Of course, I do have the concept of abstraction. All right, we have the concept of abstraction. This is one of the feature. And then we have the concept of inheritance. All right, we have the concept of inheritance, polymorphism. All right, so we have the polymorphism, we have the abstraction, inheritance, dynamic binding, all right, message passing. All these things are there in Java. All right, so that's why we call it as object oriented. So fine, before I get into all these topics, let me discuss the main concept, that is classes and objects. What exactly classes and objects? Let me not give you the complex definitions. So you have that in your notes and textbooks so that you can go through. But let me make the concept very clear to all of you so that you will be able to understand it very easily. My dear students, you all know that we have something called, let me take my golden example, that is int a. All right. So what exactly this int a is all about? You all know that int is a data type and a is a variable of type int. Yes. Int is a data type, A is a variable of type int. So please observe this carefully. Let's understand the other shade of the same thing. My dear students, so this is a predefined data type. This is a predefined data type, and I'm creating a variable for this predefined data type. That's what you need to remember. Now, how do I create my own data type? This is a predefined data type, right? Then how do I create my own data type? So please listen to me carefully. Suppose if I write student A, okay, what is this? So student is a user defined data type, and this A is an object for this user defined data type. So same way how I have created the variable. So instead of variable, I call it as an object here. So instead of data type here, I'm calling it as a data type, right? So instead of that, I will call it as a class. That's it. It's very simple to understand. If I have a user defined data type, so instead of calling that as a data type, I will call it as a class. Very simple to understand. So in the same way, how do I create the variable for this data type? In the same way, I create the object for this class. That's it. Then what do I have in the class? That is the next question that all of us have. We have two important things inside the class. Please make a note of it. So the first thing that I have in the class is, what is that I have? The first thing that I have in the class is board and the benches. Is it? Not that class. So in this Java class, okay. So imagine I have the class name that is student. Okay, imagine like this. So inside this, I will have two important things. So the first one that I have is data member. What is the first one that I have? The first one that I have is data member. Another one that I have is member function. Alright, this is what you need to remember. So fine, sir, we understood we have two important things. The first that I have is data member. The second one that I have is member function. What exactly this data member and member function, sir? Let's take this remote. The name of the class is remote. When it comes to this class, you have told, sir, we have two things. One is data member and member function. Then can you tell us with this example? Yes. Height of this remote, type of this remote, name of this remote, cost of this remote, all these things, I will call it as a properties. Can I call it as a properties which defines the type of this remote, which describes this remote? Yes. That I will call it as data members. That I will call it as a data members. What does it do? So it will help me to change the slides. That is a function of this remote. That is the function of this remote. That is what I will call it as a member function. Let's take this pen. If I have the class as pen, I have the data members and member function. Data members in the sense what? The properties of this pen. Height of this pen, color of this pen, type of this pen, cost of this pen, company of this pen, all those things will define about this pen. Yes or no? Yes. So that is what I will call it as the data members of this pen. What do I do with this pen? I use this pen to write, scratch, draw. All this write, scratch, draw are the different functions of this pen. So that is what I will call it as a member function. The another name for this member function is what I will call it as a methods. That's what you need to remember. I generally don't use the concept of member functions in Java. So I use the word called methods. Methods and member functions both are synonyms. Synonyms in the sense it exchanges the same meaning. That's what you need to remember. So fine, you got a brief idea with respect to the class. So what is this class then? So I have this int which is already predefined, but I'm not able to do my things because it is already predefined. I wanted to do my own things. So a lot of restrictions are there with the predefined data types. So for that reason, I'm creating my own data types. So the flexibility that I have to create my own things with the help of classes. So fine, sir, you spoke about the classes. Then what is objects? Imagine I am creating the class for the student. I have 60 students in my class. Should I write 60 times the same class program? No. I will create the replica of this class 60 times. How do I create? I create the objects, 60 different objects. Say for example, I'm creating, later on I will discuss the syntax to create the object, but as of now you just imagine, okay? I have student, okay, let me just write it here. I have student, okay, S1, S2, S3, like this, 60, S60. So what is this? S1 is an object. It's almost same like in a variable I'm creating of type student. So like that, I will create 60 objects. Each object is a copy of this class. Entire thing, whatever I have in this student class, I have in that object. I have the original notes which I have written. You will take the photocopy of it, 60 photocopy of it. So each copy is an object. Original notes is a class. That's what you need to remember here. So fine, you got the idea about what is class and what you will have in the class. And then what is object? Now, how do I create the object? So fine, why that in Java? Yes, of course, my dear students, you need to remember Java is a pure object-oriented programming language. Everything in the Java is treated as, or it will be treated in the form of classes and objects. So that's what you need to remember. Everything, even this int, is also treated as a class. Everything is treated as classes and objects and methods is what you need to remember in Java. So that's why I have this session for all of you today. So let's understand that. So guys, how do I create the class? What is the syntax that I have to use? The first and the beautiful word that I have to use to create the class is class. That is the keyword that I have to use to create any class. Then followed by, I have to give the name for the class. Whenever I'm giving the name for the class, we generally give A, B, C, X, Y, Z. My dear students, so please remember, when I'm giving the class name, it's mandatory that I have to use the relevant name. That name should speak what exactly that class is doing. That's very important that all of us should know. So fine, and I have to follow the identifier rules when I'm taking the name of the class. That's very important. Alright, so fine, I have to give the name of the class. You just don't worry about this. Let me explain this a little later. I have a topic. When it comes to that, I'll be speaking about this. As of now, you just have to understand. So I have a keyword called class and the class name. Followed by, I have to open the flower bracket and I have to close the flower bracket. So in between that, so please observe field declaration and the methods declaration. Field declaration since data members. So you will be creating a variables, right? Int A, B, C. So that's what we call it as a field declaration and the method declaration, which we have already discussed. Two things that I have in the class. Alright, this is the general syntax that you need to remember with respect to the class. How do I define the class? This is how I define the class. Fine. Field declaration. Let me talk about the field declaration now. Field declaration is nothing but the data members declaration. The variables that I need, the properties of that class declaration is what I will call it as a field declaration. Alright, suppose for this class, what are the required variables that I have to create of which type? So that is what I have to keep it in mind. And then I have to create that. Okay, so here I have created two variables of type int. So one is length, another one is width. So this is how I will be creating that. Okay, keep that in mind. So fine, you understood what is field declaration. So you all know how to declare the variables, right? In the same way you will be declaring it. Let me not spend time much here. Moving forward, very important thing. You all know that we have two things inside the class. The first thing that I have already declared, I have already discussed, not declared, that is field declaration. The second one is methods. What is the syntax to define any method inside the class? So please observe here. The first one, I have to mention the type. I have to mention the type. Okay. Second thing that I have to mention is method name. I have to mention the method name. I will show you this example for this, but I want all of you to write down the syntax for this. It's a humble request from my side, darlings. So the first one is type you have to mention, and the second one is method name. Like how you have the class name, in the same way you have the method name. Why do I have to have the method name and the class name, sir, for all the things? Array, why do you have the name? It's very important, right? That all of us should have the name, because we need to identify ourselves uniquely among the crowd. The same way, I will have n number of classes in one program. Keep that in mind. When I want to identify the class uniquely, it's very important that I should have the method name and the class name, right? The same way I have the method name here. So followed by, I have the parenthesis. Inside that, I will have a parameters list. So what is this parameters? Imagine this method is like a process of preparing the biryani. If I want to prepare the biryani, what are the ingredients that I have? What are the ingredients that I want? So I need rice, I need vegetables. Imagine I'm preparing vegetable biryani. All right. So I need vegetables. I need a lot of ingredients, right? All these things I will call it as parameters. In the same way, if I want to perform some action, I need some supporting things. So that's what I will call it as the parameters. Fine, I'll be mentioning that here. And I will call the method body, whatever I want. So inside the method, what is the action that I'm going to perform? So I will call that as a method body. All right, so opening flower bracket, closing flower bracket. This is the general syntax for method. I will show you this with an example. Just you need to remember the syntax as of now. All right, this is the general syntax. Moving forward, creating the object. How do I create the object? What is the syntax? You all know how to write the class now, how to define the class. And also you understood like what is the syntax to create the method, but how do I create the object? So you have to follow this syntax. I have written rectangle rect1. What is the meaning of it? So this is the name of the class. This is the name of the class. So for this class, I am creating one object. The name of the object is rect1. That's what you need to remember. So fine. I have rect1, which I have already created. So for that, I need to allocate the memory, right? I need to initialize it, right? How do I do it? So with the help of new keyword, I need to allocate the memory, right? With the help of new keyword, I'm doing that. And also followed by that, I am calling the constructor for the initialization. What is constructor here? So you just keep this word in your mind. I will be speaking about this in my next session. So this is the syntax. Please make a note of it. So what is the syntax? Class name, object name, semicolon, and the followed by object name is equal to, you are using the new keyword. New is a keyword. So which will allocate the memory for you. And then followed by that, you are using the constructor. What exactly constructor is all about? Keep that question in the mind. Alright, so you understood the syntax to create the object. But my dear students, if you are watching my session, so please keep one thing in mind. So you should have a lot of questions. So for each and everything, you should have why do I have like this? Or why do I do like this? A lot of questions should be there. So only then you will understand the subject very clearly. If you have the good basics, then you can play anything. If you don't have the basics, if you just mug up and if you just write the same thing in the exam, of course you will have the numbers, but you will not have the capability to survive in the working place. So always go behind the knowledge. Automatically the marks will follow you. By saying this, moving on to the next concept, keep one thing in mind. So this is what it happens at the back whenever you are creating the object. What is happening, sir? What is that you're doing? So the first step, you are declaring the object. What is the first thing that you're doing? You're declaring the object. So how are you declaring? So I have the class name that is rectangle. So for that, I'm creating the object that is rect1. So fine. So initially it is null. The rectangle is null. The object, whatever you have created, rect1, it is null. So fine. What is that you're doing after that? So please observe. Rect1. So this process, observe this. This process is what I will call it as a instantiate. You are instantiating the object that you have created. So what is that process? So please observe, rect1 is equal to new rectangle. Rect1 is equal to new rectangle. This process is what I will call it as an instantiate. So this is what I will call as a declaration. So this is what I will call it as an instantiate. So whenever I'm creating an object, I will come across with a 3 steps. So let me explain that first. Okay, the first one is declaration. The second one is instantiation. The third one is initialization. So hope you understood what is declaration. This process is what I will call it as a declaration. This process is what I will call as a instantiation. Initialization, in the sense I am putting some value to that. Okay, that's what I will call it as a initialization. These 3 things you should keep it in your mind. So hope you got the basic idea about what is classes and what is objects now. Alright, so guys, so this is what you need to observe here. Say for example, I have created a rectangle. I can also write like this. This is another way. Okay, this is another way of creating the object. So that is the first method and this is the second method. You can also use this method. So most of the people, we use this method so that we can finish off in the single line. So both are same is what you need to remember. Rectangle R1 is equal to new rectangle. Alright, that's what you need to remember. So fine. Both R1 is pointing to the rectangle object. That's what you need to remember here. So fine. Guys, you all know the 3 things. Declaring is different, instantiation is different, initialization is different. So hope you got the clear separation and the clear idea about 3 things. Alright, so by this, I have come to an end of this session. So if you find it interesting and if you learned something, don't forget to click on the like button. That is the inspiration to me to do the next session with a lot of innovative ideas. I will be coming in front of you only if I get more likes. Thank you. Bye-bye.